What's good, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Mystery Unsolved. It's Friday night. You know what that means. We're at it again. If you watched it last week, you know what tonight's episode is on. It is on the Jamison family. Who are the Jamison family? Well, we're about to find out. Is it a disappearance or is it a death? That is also something we will soon be finding out. Without further ado, Mystery Unsolved, the Jamison family. Full disclosure, my tablet has a tendency to shut off. I literally gave it like 6 minutes to do its thing, and it didn't do it. So it's going to probably try to be a bitch to me and just shut off randomly during this live. If it does, I will try my best to get back on. Without further ado, let's get into it. The Jamison family of Eufaula, Oklahoma, United States, Bobby Jamison, his wife Sherilyn, and daughter Madison mysteriously disappeared on or after October 8th, 2009. The family was reportedly considering the purchase of a 40-acre plot of land near Red Oak, about 30 miles from Eufaula. At that time, at the time that they vanished. Their suspected remains were found on November 2013 and positively identified by the Oklahoma medical examiner on July 3rd, 2014. No cause of death was determined, and the circumstances surrounding their disappearance remain unknown. Okay, so when I said, is it a disappearance or a death, I literally didn't know. I had seen death before I clicked on the article, but I was like, I don't know if that's even the right one. So, yeah, we have both. It's a disappearance that turned into a death, which is kind of crazy. Most of them do, Justin. Most of them, not all of them. Not all of them. All right, let's go over who the Jamison family was, shall we? Bobby Jamison, he was born on August 4th, 1965. He was aged 44 at the time of his disappearance. Sherilyn Jamison, November 5th, 1968, age 40 at the time of their disappearance. And Madison Jamison, August 1st, 2003, age 6. So she was literally just a little girl, little kid, when she went missing. They disappeared on they disappeared on October 8th, 2009. Status found deceased. So this is like a double. This is usually the case with, mystery unsolved mystery cases, right? Why did they disappear? Where did they go? But also, if the remains are found, it's like, well, how did they die? So we don't know any of it. None of it. The initial investigation into the Jamison family's disappearance indicated that they had probably not vanished off their own accord. Their pickup truck was found abandoned in Latimer County, Oklahoma, a short distance south of Kinta, a few days after their disappearance. The Jamisons' bodies were not found, but their malnourished dog, Maisie, was still in the truck. Another bit of information, this was a case that BuzzFeed Unsolved did, Shane Madej and Ryan Vergara, hence the reason I'm doing it. So I do remember this part of them coming across the malnourished dog inside the truck. So if I remember correctly, it does sort of like take a weird, again, it was so long ago since I'd seen the episode, but as I read, I think little pieces of this case will come back to me. If I remember correctly, the Jamisons acted strangely. Like, really strangely. Like, I'm pretty sure that's... When and if we get to it, I'll let you know. Also discovered were the family's ID cards, wallet, mobile phones, a GPS system, and about $32,000 in cash. Found in the car. Their IDs, wallets, mobile phones, GPS system, and about $32,000 in cash. So literally everything that you have to identify yourself, everything that you pretty much need to survive, in modern times, is in the car, in the truck. The Jamisons were not known for carrying large amounts of cash with them. I'm sorry, are people normally known for carrying $32,000 of cash on them? Is that a thing? Footage from the family's. This is what I was talking about. Red flag. Footage from the family's home surveillance system, timestamped the day they left their house, showed the couple making several silent trips between their vehicle and home as they methodically packed to leave. In the footage, the couple's movements were described as trance-like. The video also showed Sherilyn place a brown briefcase into the vehicle. Former Sheriff Beauchamp remarked that he believed the briefcase could be an important clue. Neither the briefcase nor Sherilyn's handgun has ever been recovered. Yeah. So, I really wish, again, I'm not a professional by any means, like BuzzFeed Unsolved is, but I wish I had the surveillance footage to show you because it is just freaking bizarre. It's absolutely batshit crazy. Like, it's exactly how it was described in they showed it on BuzzFeed, right? So I'll try to like reenact a little bit of it. Bear with me. But my share is the truck, right? And some of them, like one of them, they were just staring off. And then they would go into one of them would go into the garage, put stuff in the truck, and then they would stand next to each other and they would talk. Of course, you couldn't hear what was being said. And then one of them again would just stand there and just stare up into like nothingness. It was so bizarre. And the fact that that was like the last time that they were seen, and then they disappeared. I'm not sure where the little girl was, Madison. I'm not really sure if she was in the house or she was already in the truck. I don't really know. The skeletal remains of 2 adults and 1 child were discovered by 2 hunters in a remote area of Latimer County in November of 2013, more than 4 years after the family went missing, and less than 3 miles away from where the pickup truck had been abandoned. The remains were widely presumed to be those of the missing family, though the Oklahoma Medical Examiner's office had to use anthropological, try saying that 5 times fast, and forensic pathological testing to identify them. Officials confirmed on July 3, 2014, that the remains belonged to the Jamisons. A cause of death was not determined due to the heavily decomposed state of the bodies. Yeah, how fucking nuts is that? So not only did they go missing, did they disappear, and nobody knew why they got into their truck and just left. And left all their shit in the truck. And then just wandered off. As if that wasn't bad enough. But then, 4 years later, their bodies are found. So wherever their bodies were from, obviously that seems like a place that not a lot of people walk along. Like, was it a path? Was it in the forest? Doesn't really tell us. But if their bodies weren't found until 4 years later, you can kind of assume that wherever the hell they did travel to, a lot of people don't go to. This is one of those weird theories I always have. Like, you ever see forests on the side of the highway? So you see a bunch of trees, just complete forest on the highway, right? You ever wonder what's in those forests? For all you know, you could just be driving past a freaking forest on the highway, on the side of the road, and there could be bodies in there. You don't know. You would never know. Unless you have the curious mind like I do. But even then, like, even if I drove, do you think I would honestly stop on the highway and yeah, I probably would not. And I imagine you would not either. Let us continue, shall we? All right, we got some theories. Let's see what we got. Before the remains were discovered, several theories emerged about the family's disappearance, such as they had faked their own deaths, were in witness protection, were murdered, or had died by group suicide. Shortly before the disappearance, Bobby Jamison involved in a bitter lawsuit with his father, Bob Dean Jamison, claiming that he had threatened the family and had struck him with his vehicle in November of 2008. Bobby also alleged that his father was involved in meth and criminal activity. Police do not believe that Bobby Dean Jamison was involved in the family's disappearance. So let me just stop to talk about this for a minute. Isn't it just a really, really big coincidence that this family goes missing and they end up dead? And it just so happens that the man of the family, Bobby, is in a lawsuit with his own father, and he thinks his father was involved in meth and criminal activity. Like that is a huge coincidence. Like it's one thing like if you just took your family and went missing, and there's no other member of your family, like everybody is just clean. But this guy just happens to have a highly suspicious father who deals in meth and has a criminal activity, has a criminal past. So the fact that police do not believe that Bobby Dean Jamison was involved in the family's disappearance, really? I hope that was the first thing you went off of because holy shit. Another popular theory was that the Jamisons themselves were drug dealers. Investigators cited the large amount of cash found in their truck and the apparent strange behavior exhibited by Bobby and Sherilyn shortly before they went missing. The Jamisons had reportedly told their local pastor, Gary Brandon, on separate occasions that they had seen spirits inside their home, and that Bobby had allegedly claimed to have been reading from the Satanic Bible. Yeah, there's another one. That was another thing I forgot about. I'll read the last part again. The Jamisons had reportedly told their local pastor, Gary Brandon, on separate occasions that they had seen spirits inside their home, and that Bobby had allegedly claimed to have been reading the Satanic Bible. Yeah. So here are our theories, right? They faked their own deaths. Well, obviously that's not true because their bodies were found. They were in witness protection. Well, obviously that's not true because their bodies were found. Group suicide. Theory number one. Still highly possible. Bobby's father, Bob Dean Jamison, murdered them or had them murdered. Were they possibly drug dealers? Maybe. They absolutely could have been. It would certainly explain the shady ass behavior on our camera footage. And let's see. Well, oh, if they were drug dealers, then they were probably using their own stash, right? Using their own supply. It was okay. And then of course the Satanic Bible, which is just, if I remember correctly, BuzzFeed Unsolved got into this, and Shane was like, "Wait, what?" And yeah, Ryan had like a whole thing ready to go. Like, yeah, and apparently like there was several instances where Bobby was like seen or heard reciting from the Satanic Bible. Okay, so okay, um, all right. I'm gonna break down what I think of these theories. Group suicide. You can't rule it out. If they were on drugs, then obviously they were not in a clear mind space. But they had their 6-year-old daughter with them. So again, drug makes people do a lot of crazy shit, right? So I don't know. It's really a hard thing to say. Like, would they possibly have been so high and so far gone on their own supply of drugs that they killed their daughter, killed one of the others? Um, let's say Bobby did it. Like, say Bobby killed the daughter first, then his wife, and then himself. Like, it's possible, but I don't know. I really don't know because they had to do a lot of planning, which we know they did. The camera footage shows them putting a whole bunch of shit into their truck. So I don't know. I feel like if you were on drugs, I feel like a part of you would forget some of the shit that you were even planning to do to begin with. You know what I mean? So I think suicide is possible, but as to whether or not they were on the influence of drugs when they committed suicide, it's really hard to say. Do I think that Bobby's father, Bob Dean Jamison, was involved in the family's disappearance? The police don't think so, but how many times have I done an episode of Mystery Unsolved where the police were absolutely incompetent as fuck? Tons of times. Tons. Especially cases that happened in the 40s. Because what's the motto here at Mystery Unsolved? Police officers in the 40s were bad, incompetent. That's my 40s impression. Um, do I think Bobby Dean Jamison was involved? I mean, it's really. How do you look over that shit? Like, he himself dealt in meth. They think that they might have been. They think the Jamisons themselves might have been drug dealers. So it's like, well, wouldn't Bobby be a hypocrite? Like, Dad, you do drugs. Yet he and his wife deal drugs too. Like, they can't. You can't have it both ways. I mean, you could, but like, in criminal activity, like, what does that also mean? But according to police, these are all so good. I mean, I don't give a crap what the police say. I think he was maybe he was involved. Like, I want to see him being questioned. Is that, do they have that on file? I would love to see that shit. Did he take a polygraph? Did he pass that shit? If he did not take a polygraph, why the fuck did he not take a polygraph test? It's not even on here. Leave it to me to ask a question that they don't have listed here. Another popular theory was that the Jamisons themselves were drug dealers. Yep. Do I think that them possibly being drug dealers had something to do with it? Maybe. Maybe. Again, like I said with the suicide, you can't rule it out. I will circle back to the suicide in a second. Do I think Bobby's. Do I think that the whole fact that they had seen spirits inside their home and the whole satanic Bible, do I think that has something to do with it? Yes. I'm going to put it all together. I think that maybe or maybe not, they had spirits in their house. Or they were so high on drugs all the time that they saw shit that wasn't there. Also, whether he was on the influence of drugs or not, Bobby Jamison was like, let me read the Satanic Bible. Said no sane person, right? So maybe they've created their own conspiracy. They've created their own illusions, their own little private world, right? Maybe it became too much for them, so they decided to like, let's just pack up, let's just do what we need to do because we're not coming back here. They knew they weren't going back to the house. You don't leave your ID, wallet, mobile phone, and $32,000 in your fucking truck if you plan on going back home. Like, let's just get that right out of the way. Back to the suicide. Is it possible that they killed themselves, right? But maybe they weren't on the influence of drugs? I would love to think that, but again, the surveillance footage proves otherwise. They were on something. So, the other thing that's worth noting here is that remember all the belongings they left on the truck, but yet the briefcase that Sherilyn had, and apparently there was a handgun, I have to assume it was in the briefcase, were not found. Do you see where I'm going with this? If they killed themselves, they couldn't determine how they died, right? They couldn't determine that. But let's say we know that there's a gun, but if they killed themselves by a handgun, how have they not found the handgun? Is my point. Obviously, the last person to use the gun would have dropped the gun after they killed themselves, meaning the gun would have been found. Unless some crazy ass psychopath person who has no emotion is like, hey, I found these dead bodies. Let me pick up this gun. And then just, that's not happening. So all of a sudden, suicide doesn't really seem to make much sense here, right? Because they haven't found the damn gun or the briefcase. Or the briefcase. The briefcase didn't even have money in it. So what was in the damn briefcase? Was there more money in the briefcase? Because there was $32,000 in the truck. So did they have more money in the briefcase? Drug deal gone wrong? I think that's kind of more possible here. They were on drugs themselves. They went to this weird ass location that not many people like travel upon. And then they meet with these people who are looking to buy drugs. The deal goes wrong for whatever reason. Either like maybe the people that were supposed to buy drugs were like, what are you people on? Like, why are you acting so weird? And the people who did the drug deal killed them. The people who were going to buy the drugs killed them, took the briefcase, took the gun, and yeah, maybe that's what happened. I think that's what happened. Either that, or I think Bobby's father had something to do with it. He had them killed. Because suicide to me just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. There would be a gun at the body, on the ground of where their bodies were found. So, what do you think? Do you think the Jamison family died by suicide? Do you think they were murdered? Do you think Bob Dean Jamison was involved? Do you think they were drug dealers? Do you think that the last thing I will mention, do you think that the Satanic Bible that Bobby read had something to do with it? I actually do. I think it's a mixture between the drugs and him reading the Satanic Bible. I think that he gets so paranoid that he was kind of like, they kind of figured they needed to get away. And that's also why I think the father was involved, because they didn't plan on going back to the house. They knew shit was going to go down. So maybe they knew that maybe they tried to kill themselves, or they knew that they might possibly die. But I know they did not think that they were going to go back to that house. There's no way. But yeah, what do you think? Do let me know in the comments below. And this has been Mystery Unsolved, the disappearance and death, or deaths, of the Jamison family. Do stay tuned for next Friday's episode of Mystery Unsolved, where I will be discussing, one moment, The Odd Death of Charles C. Morgan. That is another one brought to you by BuzzFeed Unsolved that I had watched, so you know it's going to be packed with plenty of information. For Mystery Unsolved, this is Justin. Have a good night.